Okay, this is Dorothy Marie Wahnsiedler, and we're here on Outer Lincoln Drive, Evansville, Indiana. Today's date is 11/22/15, and Dorothy Wahnsiedler is going to tell us about where she was born, where she was raised, and then some of her experiences during World War II. She has a book in front of her, and in the area right under her chin there is an LST, and she worked at that factory for about a year, and she's going to tell us about her experiences there and her experiences during World War II in Evansville as well. Dorothy's a native of Evansville, has been here most of her life, and she'll tell us where a lot of memorabilia is of the LST. We made a 167 here, more than any other place in the United States, out of 1,100 made, and we still have one that's actively running right now. One out of the 1,100 were made is here, ported in Evansville, Indiana, LST 325. The LSTs were very instrumental in winning the war. We could land large equipment. Large equipment would be in the belly of this ship. If you look at this ship, I'll focus in on it. This ship, focus in on that ship. There's the front of the ship there, and it can open up and let the materials come out, such as large Sherman tanks, and they could land in shallow water. The bow of the ship was empty, about only 1.5 feet in water, and the stern only 7 feet in water. So that ship, empty, could go down the Ohio River. They made some in Jeffersonville, up near Pittsburgh as well, and so they're called cornfield ships, and they could get down the Ohio River. The pool stage Ohio River was 8 feet during World War II. Now it's closer to 11 or 12 feet. During that time, many big ships had to be made on the coastal areas because they were too deep to get up and down the Ohio River. So they would make these ships in Evansville, and they would then outfit them right near where Meade Johnson is in Evansville, and then they would have them go all the way downstream, and they would put men on them down in New Orleans. They have a test run. They fill them up at Biloxi with goods, and they either send them over to the Normandy area or over to the West Coast. Now, Dorothy Wahnsiedler, let's start and say your birth date, where you were born, and just introduce yourself.
I'm Dorothy Marie Wahnsiedler. I was born in December 1924, and I was born in the building, Wahnsiedler building on the second floor across from the Willard Library. And then later on, we moved to Franklin Street, about a block away. And so then I went to Assumption Grade School and then on to Memorial, where I graduated in 1943. And just after, of course, the war had started. And I remember I did go down to the Red Cross, some of us girls, and learn how to roll bandages and things like that. And then my dad and mom sent me down to Florida to visit my brother John, who was in service down there. And then when I came back, Dad had made an apartment upstairs in our house on Franklin Street because people were coming into the city for the war effort. And so this couple that lived up there, they worked at the shipyards, and they said they needed people, so they took me out there, and I was employed in the welding department. I was in the office there. I wasn't too happy with that, so I went to the first aid station, and that was just on the corner of St. Joe Avenue there across from Meade Johnson. And I was in the insurance department, and sometimes I would go down to on the docks and fill in for a secretary and help the nurse at that time. Otherwise, I was there at the main office, and it was just a lot of people. I have never seen so many people in my life coming in the first aid, you know.
And when you would just enter the plant every day, they had these little white little boxes or carousels I think, on St. Joe Street and then on Wabash or so to enter the plant because they wanted security. Reminds me of Roberts Stadium when everybody tried to get in a basketball game, but it was slow getting into the plant sometimes. Can you talk about some of those lines in the morning or in the evenings that you'd see?
I don't recall any lines particular, but I guess I did have to wait in line just like everybody else.
And when you'd see these big ships, were they big or little to you when you'd be able to get close enough to them in one of the christenings? Can you tell us about the christening that you went to of a ship?
Well, they were humongous, I guess I'd say, because I just couldn't believe that they could build a ship, and then when they'd be ready to slide down the ramp into the water, I thought sure it was going to turn over, but they would ride side up, you know. Right. And several of the christenings I was able to be there, and in the Mee Johnson Fitness Center now they have a whole wall, this panel, and it shows the christening of some of the ships and the ladies that would do it. They have a champagne bottle there that probably was used, and so it's very interesting to see that. And then they have a marker out there by the edge of the river designating that as the former shipyards.
The shipyard, I think, covered about 45 acres, so it was a pretty big area there. And you as a young kid, it just, what you said, 19,000 people were employed there, so probably 7,000 a shift or 6,000 a shift. It's just tons of people. And, going to high school at Memorial, there were 200 in your class, 800 in the school about, in Assumption much smaller, but you probably saw people from all walks of life, from other states and things of that sort.
Yeah, we saw, a lot of women out there. I guess they were probably welders too, but even some pregnant women would be working out there. I never could understand that. It was pretty heavy work, but and then it was interesting to see the go down on the docks and where you got a better view of everything that was going on.
When you welded, did you wear eye protection and things of that sort, and was welding pretty hard to do?
Well, a lot of the welders came in the first aid with flash burns on their eyes, and were treated by the doctors.
Pretty common because flash burn's a big problem with welders, and the welding was done pretty well there. It's not very thick steel there, but it held up during typhoons and other things, so people did a good job there. When you, I think the employment office was the old Weber, called Weber Equipment. It's on Franklin Street, west side of Franklin Street. When you applied, did you have to fill out all kinds of paperwork, or you don't remember all that?
I don't remember. I just, that's just gone.
How scared were you that we were going to get beat in World War II, Dorothy? Were you scared, or you thought we were going to win?
No, I don't think I thought that, but, we had to do without a lot of things, but we were willing to do it. And I remember the old Neisner store, diamond store on Main Street. I used to go there and sell stamps that people would put in their books, and it was sort of an interesting experience. And
the stores, were they very crowded downtown with all these people in town from everywhere?
Yes. On Friday nights, Main Street, you couldn't hardly get through, But it was nice having a busy downtown.
But you were there in the 30s in high school, so you were down at Assumption, or you went to Assumption Church probably, and so you would go down there in the 1930s, and from 41 to 45, you probably saw twice as many people on Main Street, or 3 times that much busier.
Yeah, very much.
Herman's Candy and Kresge's was there, and very big Holman building.
Department stores, Sam's and Kaiser's and all those.
Then what did you do? Where did you work after the war? Did you work at Mee Johnson, or where did you work?
I was with Ms. Johnson for 45 years.
What was your job there, Dorothy?
I went into the part where you started with typists and just type one letter after another, and then sign the names, and so forth. And then I went to billing department, and then from there I went to the payroll department. And then when they decided to start a personnel department, they had only an employment department at the time, about 2 or 3 people. And then they brought Mr. Elliott down from Chicago, and he was going to start it. And Mr. McCutcheon, who was the executive VP, he asked me if I would go with him. So I was with him until he retired.
Harold McCutcheon. He was one of the prime movers at Me Johnson.
He was quite a fellow.
People loved him. Ed Hassey, a big treasurer there, signed the checks. Then you saw the change from typewriter to computers and typewriter to other types of printing.
Yeah.
I mean, you probably had to do things in carbon and everything at the beginning.
The merging of Bristol Myers and Squibb and all that, because I was in personnel.
Yeah, that's in the 1970s. So Me Johnson was crucial to our Evansville industry, and they did a lot of things in World War II, help with nutrition and things. And then Bristol Myers, a company, swallowed them up probably about in the 1970s or so. You were probably there during the Metrical time. Can you tell us a little about Metrical 1962 at Me Johnson?
Yeah, and they had a building especially for that down the river where the shipyards had originally been, But it's gone now.
Metrical, there's Me Johnson stock about tripled it was about 6 years. It just looked like chocolate milk, but they put it in a can. They said it was all the nutrition you needed. Nobody else had it but Me Johnson. You lived there during that time.
Sure did. It was an exciting time.
Then everybody else caught on in about a year or two. Everybody else had similar stuff. But And then they made a lot of baby formulas. Hospital baby formulas for everywhere in the United States. It was big in that.
Yeah, I would go over to the plant occasionally and see them make the dextromaltose, and as it was called back in that time, and it was interesting. And the laboratories and in payroll, I would used to go pass out checks to the lab and throughout the plant, and got to meet a lot of people.
Yes. Was it a Friday night check every 2 weeks about?
Every week.
Every week. So they got paid weekly, so they'd run downtown, spend some of it. That's why the shops are busy on Main Street on Friday night, Friday and Saturday, but they didn't get their money till Friday night. Was it Friday usually? Or
Friday during the day, I'd pass out the checks.
Everybody had to go cash those checks. Now a lot of things are done just by you don't even see a check as much now as you used to. Sure saw a lot of changes being in those departments over time.
I just don't recognize it today as it was. It was a family place back there.
D. Me Johnson started. I think one of the D. Me Johnsons left around 70 or so. I think one of them was a real smart guy.
That's the time of the Bristol Myers came in.
Yeah, but he was a genius. He was, I don't know where he was trained, but very smart guy. But when they bought him out, I think he did leave the company. But Harold McCutcheon stayed for years, and house out in McCutcheonville, Indiana, there by north of Evansville. But was your brother John was in the war, World War II, and any of your friends, like you said, my uncle was a friend of yours, and he's in World War II. Did you lose any of your friends in World War II that went to Memorial?
Quite a few of the boys in our class were killed. Who was the football coach at Memorial? His brother, Len Logal. Gene Logal was the coach, and Len Logal was in my class. He was lost during the war.
Yeah, Lenny Logal was his nephew is named Lenny Titzer, and named after Lenny Logal, lost in Iwo Jima probably about March of 45, but it was a sad time. Gene Logal was a Memorial coach for years, and they lived over on Florida Street, or near Florida Street in Stringtown there. He was one, and then we lost Hillenbrand, one of the Hillenbrands. He was a little older than you, and then some others in your class too, but war is terrible. We only lost about 350 from the Vandenberg County area, but it affected families forever. The Logals, I still talk to Gene Logal's sister, Mrs. Hallinan, and she's never forgets Lenny Logal. Lenny Logal, people loved him, and when they come home and tell you that your son's or your brother's gone, it's a terrible thing. And war, we look at it a different way, but when you lose somebody in a family, you never forget it. my uncle Marvin DeWitt was lost in Battle of the Bulge, December 17th of 45. He graduated in 39, so he's 4 years above you. My Uncle Kenny's your age.
My brother's class then.
Your brother, which...
He graduated in 39.
Which brother? John or no, not John.
Oh, I mean, I'm thinking of grade school.
Grade school, yeah. John graduated in 41. He was in the Army Air Corps. Yeah. How did your mom and dad deal with John going off to war? What did they think about him going to war?
They worried a lot.
Yeah.
They really did. And they made a trip down once to see him. Of course, they didn't have much gas, so a lot of Dad's friends, they would give him the stamps to buy gas so they could get back down to Florida and back. But people worked together and they helped one another back then. But they were very worried about him.
A lot more working together then than you've ever seen, probably. I mean, the unity of the United States in World War II was just unbelievable. You've probably never seen unity like that.
No, it was just a different world back then. People cared about one another.
Mm-hmm. And he wouldn't have had enough gas to get to Nashville unless he'd had all those other coupons. So people pooled in, got coupons because they wouldn't give you gas, wouldn't give you rubber, wouldn't give you that. But
no.
Your mom and dad really wanted to go see him because they were worried he was going to be off and they might not see him again.
If you need a spare tire, you couldn't find tires, No. I remember I went to work with this couple, May Johnson, and a lady at work there, Reardon, I think the Reardon family, she would take me to work because, there was just the gas until war. Then I would drive myself, but it was bad.
Yes. How did you get to Assumption when you grew up? You walked there, but how did you get to Memorial, and then how did you get to work in your other two places?
I think first year or so, I remember riding my bicycle, and then after that, Sybert's bus would stop in front of the house, and I'd go, and then after that, I'd walk down to Harriet Street and catch the city bus and take that out there, We didn't drive, of course, to high school like they do now.
Yeah, when you went to Memorial, there was probably no student drove to Memorial.
I don't think so.
Probably in the class of 43, and now probably at Memorial was 800 students, or 700 to 800 students now, and probably 400 or 500 of them drive to school. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's so different. In your age, there was nobody drove to school.
Just didn't do that.
No. I graduated in 69, and there were probably 50 people that drove to school, but now I'll bet 400, more than half of the school. So different now. Do you have anything to tell, like the next 2 or 3 generations of what you think about World War II and the unity and how you saw the nation get together and how you saw Evansville as a production, one of the biggest per capita productions, actually the biggest production per capita in the world in World War II. 70,000 workers, over 120,000 people, biggest per capita in the world. So, you sat and you didn't realize it at the time because you and your sister-in-law Lucy, you didn't understand what was going on. It's hard as a child or 18, 20-year-old to understand, but it was really something great happening that
I didn't realize, I guess we were doing a lot of things that I learned from you that we were doing in Evansville, because it was a secret,
Yeah, so many people, like my mother worked at Chrysler for 2 summers, and I said, what went on? And she didn't, she was pretty observant, but she just went as a secretary, and she didn't know much because everything was top secret and you didn't know what was really happening. Nobody could look at it from a sort of a bird's eye view, and all these little things were happening here, and because of the top secret nature, nobody knew much. And in retrospect, we can put this together, and they destroyed a lot of the records, so a lot of the records we don't have, and we're trying to recreate that to show the importance of Evansville. I'm going to change this. Just you stay right there, but I'm going to put this camera right on. There's Dorothy graduating from high school up on the wall there. That's your high school picture, so we're going to put, just show her there, and that would be 1943. That's Dorothy, what's your middle name? Marie Wahnsiedler, and that's 1943 picture, and there she is right now. She's looking pretty good. So thank you for your time today. Dorothy, and appreciate your service as what we call workforce of World War II. Thank you, and thank your family.